Welcome back, truth seekers and justice enthusiasts, to the episode 33 of the Tentacles of Cuyahoga County. I'm your host, the infamous ex-chief, and we're here to shine a light on the good, expose the bad, and unravel the mysteries of our local government and beyond. We want to celebrate those officers who uphold their oath with honor while keeping a watchful eye on those who fall short. Because let's face it, folks, in the world of law enforcement and government, we need to separate the true guardians from the bad apples faster than a canine unit on a scent trail. So strap in as we extend our investigative tentacles into the murky waters of government accountability and heroism. This is the week of November 4th, and let's dive into some recent police shenanigans from around the country that'll make you wonder if we're living in a reality TV show. In Florida, a suspect tried to escape arrest by ordering an Uber while surrounded by officers. Talk about a five-star getaway fail. Over in Colorado, a drunk driver attempted to switch seats with his dog to avoid a DUI. And spoiler alert, the dog wasn't charged, but the human ended up in the dog house. An Ohio man responded to his own wanted post on Facebook, taunting the police to be quicker. Guess who's now enjoying free accommodation courtesy of the state? In Los Angeles, a suspect fled from officers on a skateboard while wearing a reflective vest because nothing says inconspicuous like glowing in the dark. And finally, an Amazon delivery driver in Idaho walked through an active police standoff to deliver a package. Now that's what I call dedication to customer service. So I was hesitant to go into this, but I think it's too important not to. I didn't want to take away from the show, which is the premise essentially of Janice Christensen and the interview with the former investigator, Mike Tinlin. However, I think this is just, again, too important not to go into. So let's talk about Canton, Ohio. 2 police officers have been indicted on charges of reckless homicide in connection with the death of Frank Tyson. The incident began when officers responded to a serious car accident where Tyson had crashed into a utility pole. This demonstrates that Tyson was already engaging in dangerous behavior that put public safety at risk. It's crucial to note that the preliminary autopsy revealed that Tyson was under the influence of both cocaine and alcohol at this time. This combination of substances likely contributed to his erratic behavior in the initial car crash. So when officers encountered Tyson at a nearby Veterans Hall, he was acting aggressively. They actually received a call for service about him acting aggressively at this Veterans Hall. So he was knocking over furniture and shouting that people were trying to kill him. The officers were faced with a volatile situation involving an intoxicated and drugged out individual who had just fled the scene of an accident. Their primary duty was to protect the public safety and detained a potentially dangerous suspect. While the outcome was undoubtedly tragic, it's essential to remember that officers often make split-second decisions in high-stress situations. The officers should not be judged on actions in hindsight, but rather consider the situation as they perceived in the moment based on their training and protocol. However, this case law was totally ignored in the Ian McGinnis and Holmes trial in Cuyahoga County. It is also worth noting that officers attempted life-saving measures, including administering Narcan and performing CPR once they realized Tyson was in distress. This demonstrates their commitment to preserving life, even in challenging circumstances. While the legal process will determine the ultimate outcome, it's crucial to consider the full context of the situation and the difficult decisions officers must make to maintain public safety. Now, I actually had a viewer send this over to me, and I didn't know if I was going to use it or not. But I want to define by Ohio Revised Code what these officers were charged with or indicted on, which is reckless homicide. So let's talk about this. According to the Ohio Revised Code, Section 2903.041, reckless homicide is defined as follows. No person shall recklessly cause the death of another or the unlawful termination of another's pregnancy. So to understand the elements of this charge, we need to consider the definition of recklessly as provided in Section 2901.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. A person acts recklessly with heedless indifference to the consequences. the person disregards a substantial and unjustifiable risk that the person's conduct is likely to cause a certain result or is likely to be of a certain nature. A person is reckless with respect to circumstances when, with heedless indifference to the consequences, the person disregards a substantial and unjustifiable risk that such circumstances are likely to exist. I know I put everybody to sleep, but I wanted to make certain that everybody had the full accounting of what the definition was. So therefore, let me break it down. For the officers to be found guilty of reckless homicide, the prosecution must prove that all of these things, there's three things. The officers acted with heedless indifference to the consequences of their action. They disregarded a substantial and unjustifiable risk that their conduct was likely to cause Tyson's death, and their actions directly led to Tyson's death. I don't think it's possible, but I didn't think it was possible for the jury to find Ian McGinnis and Anthony Holmes guilty either. I've lost a lot of faith in our justice system as it relates to police officers. I'm all about holding bad cops accountable, folks. This isn't me being a bootlicker, which I actually was called bootlicker when I posted this. When I posted this story on our Facebook page, the Tentacles of Cuyahoga County on the Facebook page, someone had the audacity to call me a bootlicker. And I said, well, obviously you don't watch my show. You don't watch the channel because I attempt to be objective. Maybe I am a bootlicker. I don't know. But let's move on. I will go back into this and get back into this on a later episode. I just don't want to clog this episode up with it, folks. So, folks, remember to keep those tentacles of information flowing our way. Send your tips, stories, or conspiracy theories to the Tentacles of Cuyahoga County at gmail.com. I'll put the email address here and also drop it in the link below. Or if you're feeling extra sensitive, use the Signal QR code or link at the bottom of the screen to reach out. Speaking of support, if you enjoy our deep dives into the murky waters of the show, consider buying me a cup of coffee. Just scan the QR code or click the link below. Your caffeine contribution helps fuel our investigative tentacles. And don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe. The more you engage, the more our tentacles can wrap around the algorithms of YouTube and Rumble, spreading our message far and wide. Now get ready for our main event. We're sitting down with Mike Tinlin, current Portage County Commissioner and one of the original investigators of the chilling Janice Christensen case from 1987. Mike's going to share his experiences and memories from the haunting investigation. So stick around because you won't want to miss the deep dive into one of Northeast Ohio's most notorious cold cases.
How you doing?
How are you?
I'm good, sir.
Good. Broken it down like into three, basically just like an introduction, case details, suspect, and some of it, I don't know exactly when the merger happened with Hudson. So
1994.
Okay. Because, there was a ton. This is probably like one of the, I've done a lot of homicides, but this was voluminous, the amount of paperwork you guys had in this case. So it took me a while just to even try to figure out what was going on, and a lot of it was done throughout the years. So I was just trying to I don't know where you stopped, and I didn't want to ask you like irrelevant questions to you, but so if something is irrelevant or something doesn't apply to something you've done, just feel free to let me know or whatever. But
yeah. Well, just so you know, I've worked it from the beginning. I was called to the scene. And from that point, I worked this probably 10 years. We worked it 2 years very studiously, if you will. But, as things drop off, we run out of leads. Quite frankly, if you look at the initial, I wanted to throw the husband in jail because there was a lot of factors involved that really bothered me. He failed 3 polygraphs, and it just goes on and on. But at that time, one of the prosecutors said, we need to continue to look further. And so Joe Kalmar, J.D. Kalmar and I, we worked this case like no other. I've handled, prior to going to Hudson, I think I told you I was with the sheriff's office here in Portage County. And I, through Kent and Ravenna, I handled a lot of their homicides. So having that and some of the knowledge, it just kind of went, this whole case went awry. And I don't, did you get a chance to see like the first, let me just say 6 months where we had an unknown guy on the bike trail. We had a composite. We worked the bike trail every day for a month because you know how it is. I want to go run, I'm going to go run today. And then you wait 3, 4, 5 days and you don't go out and run. So we wanted to make sure at that time period we had met with everybody. And for this guy that we had a composite for to, for a better term, disappear, how this all shook out makes sense. So yeah, it was involved.
Are you able to, and I don't know, I'm trying to see if I can figure out how to, and I took my purpose wasn't to like sensationalize her body or anything, so I took most of the photos out, but like this is the entrance.
Right. So
and I was trying to go back and get like, you know, modern day B-roll footage of the area, but I can't, there's a lot of this that I can't figure out where this is. Is this the same entrance or? Yes,
that is Barlow Road looking to the north to the entrance of the bike trail from Barlow Road.
Okay. Now,
right now it's all new and has a new entrance, and
because this, I'm assuming this must be set back a ways because where the entrance is now, it's almost flush to the road. Where this seems,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yep, that's set back probably 20 feet.
And then just one other quick question: path that the AG they had. Oh, here it is. This area here, which is this the area that the reports indicate that most of the time she would park at?
No. This picture is up in the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. They're just showing, usually she ran and she took her dog with her. And that was a picture that was featured in the Beacon Journal when this homicide occurred. They had captured her around springtime, showing her usage of the park.
Okay. I was just trying to, and there was and I think I talked to you briefly on the phone because the husband had made reference to, well, I'll wait until we get into it. I don't want to.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't want to make it this longer than it has to be for you.
No, I cleared the whole morning for you. It's been kind of weird. We're in the middle of budget talks and union negotiations. Yeah, I just finished up the dispatch for the sheriff, and now we're working on the patrol guys. So it's really, I'm good.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, can you? Well, let's start off with just giving an introduction. You said Portage County prior. You went on to Hudson Township, then made it to the merger. Then you went on to Aurora as chief at some point. Well, I'm sorry, but go ahead.
Yep. Well, I started my career, youngest policeman in the United States. At 16, I worked undercover narcotics under a bill from the governor. I worked the 4-county area with sheriffs that have passed now, but well-known, Jim Trafficant, James Todd, some of those. And at 19, I became a patrol sergeant, came out from undercover. And at 21, I was chief of detectives at the sheriff's department here in Portage County. From there, with a family in 1982, and my wife and I wanted to have children. I was not making the cash that everybody thought you would make. So I did go to Hudson Township. I was there 2 years, was promoted to lieutenant, administrative lieutenant. 1994, the merger of the township and the village became the city of Hudson. 94, I became, the merger occurred. In 98, I became a captain, administrative assistant to the chief. And then right around 2000, I went to city of Aurora as their chief.
And now you came back as elected official commissioner for
Yep, I'm a county commissioner for the county of Portage.
So, taking you back, the first question I had was basically these are sort of broad questions, but what were the initial challenges you faced basically investigating Janice's murder back in 1987?
Well, I was assigned to the case along with J.D. Kalmar. J.D. and I worked very well together. He had a lot of experience. I handled many homicides prior to that, so J.D. and I worked the case. What came to mind was we have a young lady who was supposed to have lunch with her mom at noon that day. She left her home to go for a run. Because the run was going to be short, she didn't take her dog that she normally takes. Plus it was a little warm, a little muggy. At noon, Mom's looking for her. She couldn't find her. Called the husband who owned a landscaping company. Called him and said, I can't find Janice. They ended up calling the police department that afternoon. Would have been Cuyahoga Falls Police. They lived back up to the Cuyahoga Valley Park System. And she would always come down into Hudson to run. What happened was the husband came home, realized the dog was home, which was kind of strange. Her car was gone, and couldn't find her. He was beside himself for that evening. The next morning, he chose to get up and go look for her. And when he did that, he's on the bike trail where she always gets on at Seasons and Walters Road. No car. So he said, she's not here, there's no car. So he took the bike trail from that location down Seasons Road to where it intersects with Barlow, across Barlow Road into the next section of the bike trail. When he got about maybe 50 to 100 yards down the bike trail, the dog tries to pull him into a group of prickly vines and big massive hill of shrubbery. He pulled the dog away. They went up to Route 8, where right now, Old 8, you'll see a walk bridge across Old 8. That wasn't there at the time. But he walked up to Route 8, said she wouldn't have went any further than this. He turned around and came back, got back to that location where the prickly vines were, and the dog pulled him in again. So he thought, let's just go see what's up. He went into it and found Janice in the briars, dead. So where does that send you with the amount of stab wounds that she had to her? Where does that send you as an investigator? Well, to us, it sent me to the husband right away. So we had some issues with that. Number one, where's the car? We had a all points bulletin out for the vehicle, and that's what we're doing. We're looking for the car. But my assumption, and that's all it was we need to look hard at the husband. And that was searching the house and that type of thing. So right off the get-go, we had issues. We thought we knew who did this. We thought we had our man, but I don't want to forget anything. So we really processed this scene. And when I say that, 2 weeks prior to this homicide, J.D. Kalmar and I attended a 2-week-long homicide investigation class taught by Dr. Thomas Noguchi. He was the L.A. County coroner, world-renowned known pathologist, and he talked to us a lot about DNA. And that was kind of new to us. But we knew that anything and everything that we had at that scene, we had to preserve. And we were doing things and taking things that, quite frankly, our pathologists looked at us and said, "What are you doing?" They were aware of the DNA. We weren't smarter than them, but what we had been taught just recent, I believe, helped us preserve what little DNA we did have.
And you sort of already gone into this, but I mean, how did the investigation evolve over time? And you just, one of my questions was the new techniques of technology, which you were just talking about, the DNA. But I mean, as it's going across over time, how did it evolve?
Well, we ended up finding the vehicle. Her vehicle was found in Bedford at a parking lot in a drugstore. So we obviously went up. Her and her husband, very healthy people, went to the gym, that type of thing. However, when we found the vehicle and entered the vehicle, a lot of cigarette butts on the floor, under the seat. So, again, DNA, we took everything, tarped the car, brought it back so that we could vacuum it and just really preserve any and everything that we had possible. And again, keep in mind, my thoughts are on the husband. We went to the gym where they worked out. I stood the door and talked to anybody and everybody that came in. Found out that they were having marital problems. Found out that he wanted to move to Florida and open up a business. She didn't want to go. She was not seeing someone, however, she was very good friends with her workout partner. So, all in all, these are all things that were taking place at this time, along with still looking at the husband, still thinking he was our guy. So, the entire investigation utilized DNA, and it cost us back then, Chief, a lot of money for a DNA test. We used a company out of New Jersey, and we were talking $4,000 to $5,000 every time we did a test. We had very small samples. Now, what went good for us was the samples that we retrieved from Janice showed us that the rate that occurred, the subject in this case was O positive non-secretor. And it took us some time to understand that O positive non-secretor is not very common. But that was the husband as well. So we had two different scenarios. Let's split this, which they did. Whose DNA is this and whose DNA is this? And they were able to do that. And that's why during our investigation, we got to a point where our chief said, we're going to probably hear about this in someone's dying declaration.
So, and curiously, because I did notice that also. I mean, you guys didn't spare any expense. I mean, there's a ton of receipts for a lot of things throughout the years that you guys attempted to do. It was, I'm assuming BCI at that point did not offer any type of DNA testing?
Correct, was not available.
Okay. And that was actually a question I had. I had always assumed that they had, but apparently not, because you guys were paying an exorbitant amount of money for testing throughout the years.
Yeah, we were.
So were there any specific pieces of evidence or leads that seemed promising at the time but didn't pan out?
Yes, there were a lot of where we thought we were going in the right direction, barking up the right tree, so to speak, but a lot of the leads led us blank, which during the time we did, as you've seen the reports, we did a lot of investigations and interviews with people that utilize the bike trail. How often do you utilize it? When do you come out? And we did speak to a lot of people. And on that day, prior to finding Janice, we had determined that there was a gentleman out there. Was not in any type of jogging or running clothes. Didn't seem to fit to be out there at that time. And we did get a sketch artist, and a composite was drawn up of someone who said, we had two people who had told us, this guy just didn't belong out here. So having that knowledge, we spent a good month and trying to talk to anybody and everybody who not only drives up and down the road, but uses the bike trail. So as you know, in a township, we're spared not only funds, but manpower. So our chief, he worked a lot of our shifts on the road to allow us to continue digging, because we didn't want to pass it on to somebody who only had a minor bit of the information or a third of the information. We wanted everybody to have it all. So by that, our chief said, you guys are it. You're going to stay on this till we make a resolution, which sadly, we never really did.
Can you describe the crime scene and what stood out to you when you actually arrived? I know you described the husband, but I mean, like, when you showed up on scene, what stood out to you at this point?
Well, he was when I arrived. I was about 20 minutes after the call, arriving on the scene. He was very distraught, hitting his fist on the road. We just couldn't really calm him down. He was very distraught. My initial look at the victim in the scene pretty much made me think she may have been staged or placed there. And with the amount of stab wounds that she had in her chest and stomach area, there was no pooling of the blood. They were dry. Underneath, the knife didn't obviously go through her. It was enough to get into her organs, heart, that type of thing. But there was nothing laying there. Lividity was present, but no blood pool, which basically told me she was placed there. Now, for us to go in and get her out, we were cut up, charred up arms, that type of thing. She wasn't that bad. Now, to be in that area, be sexually assaulted, you're going to have injuries. You're going to have scrapes and bruises and that type of thing. There were none present. So that tells me she was placed in that briar bush. So that hit me right away. The position of her clothes, nothing that we could tell was taken from the scene. But that told me she was probably deceased somewhere else and placed in there. Nobody made any kind of definitive statement to that. However, we did during our investigation say, that didn't happen there. We couldn't find a location where it did happen. But as I indicated to you earlier, I stayed on top of Ken, the husband. And today, I feel really bad for him. All these years, he's been in the back of my mind as being the guy. And that's not fair. It wasn't fair to him. But we did retrieve, obviously, enough information and preserve it, and had enough to make the conclusion that we did of recent.
It's unfortunate. I mean, the family is high probability of any homicide. Family is going to be involved, or someone that's close to it. So I mean, it's It's not that you weren't barking up the right tree. I mean, he had to be eliminated. So, but I did find because when I was walking up and down there, I was trying to figure out because, like you said, there was nothing ever definitive in the investigation how she got there, and so from like the point of where you park your cars up to that location, there were questions in my mind. How did this guy get there? Did he drive? Or was he, posted somewhere around? Because he obviously took her vehicle. So those are questions that were going through my mind. And then again, I don't know, maybe 100 pounds wet, it seemed. And I was trying to figure out how he got her there. But I mean, I was hoping you might have the answer to it, but obviously not.
No. Now, when we looked, we obviously scoured the area. And the car was another thing. Our idea was, could it be a truck driver? Could it be a delivery person? We looked at that. Obviously, we never canceled any of those ideas. However, our idea was a question that we had was, how does this person drive a car to Bedford? Quite a distance from us, maybe 10, 12 miles. Drive a car to Bedford parking lot, and back then we're not talking surveillance cameras or anything else to assist us, but how to park and leave it there, then what? No taxi cab, no ride. How did this person, our thoughts were at the time, and we did investigate some people in Bedford, he probably lived up there. Why did he choose this spot? A lot of questions went into this. We spent a lot of time working with Bedford PD. They were very helpful. The detectives at the time were very knowledgeable of, we've got some people that we know of. Let's take a look. And we did. Where were you? Explain where you were. And then what helped us was, we did have a couple fingerprints from the vehicle. We did have the DNA, DNA from some of the cigarettes. But once again, we were back to the who do we match it to? When we finally realized one day, let's stop looking at the husband. Let's focus on the intruder, because we know it's not the husband now. And we kind of came to that conclusion. And like I said, I felt bad about it, but we did all that we could have done, and then some, spent a lot of money. I talked to the brother of the deceased at least once a week. And I also spoke to the parents. Dad was a professor at Kent State, lived in the city of Aurora. So I had a lot of communication with them. And as you know, Chief, when you have these kind of things, you're busting. We spent probably 20 hours a day, without exaggerating, if not more. And I was lost, absolutely lost, onto what other direction to go. And that's why our chief had indicated to me, hey, you've got this, but we're not gonna find this out till somebody passes away, and that's just kind of what happened.
Now, and just curiously, and I'm not putting his name out there. There was a, and I'm assuming when you were talking about them going to the gym, and I'm sort of just going off my script here at this point. It was just a question I had. I remembered. So the person, the marital issues, was that the other person that was listed on a lot of the DNA submission sheets?
Correct. Yes, okay. And he submitted to the DNA. Simply his father, or stepfather, if you will, was a police officer for Cuyahoga County, and he said, "You've got to help these guys and submit to this," and he did. He gave us. There were 3 actual individuals that we interviewed and really put the squeeze on, because they had opportunity. Not that they did it, but there was some opportunity there, given the situation. And we did take a lot of DNA samples.
I even saw a tip for an ex-Akron cop that you guys had looked at. But anyway, so the shoelaces? How did the discovery of the shoelaces impact your investigation, or did it at that point? Or
there was another case in Akron, like a week after that, at a bike trail, and it kind of made us realize that was the same type of thing done. But I remember that being a point, but I don't remember the scenario to it.
Okay.
I'm good, Chief, but I ain't that good.
No, it's fair. I'm trying to get as much information as I possibly can, and
Yeah. Now, I know they had a factor, but I don't remember why.
I mean, it appears that she was tied basically in the same manner, but and again, I don't even know if you knew about the other victim at the top of the world at that point, or if that was even correlated. I mean, it
was later on down the road, yes, but not right then.
It's a lot easier now having the network.
Oh yeah.
But back then, it was pretty much all word of mouth. So I mean, so and you sort of talked briefly about it, but I mean, what suspect profile were you guys looking at? I know you had mentioned like truck drivers and things of that nature.
Well, yeah, we were looking at a drifter who went state to state. We also looked at that time we had asked the FBI for a profile, and they kind of gave us what we knew. We weren't on it, but they did indicate to us truck driver, delivery person, something that would bring this suspect into our area and then leave. Not someone who came up here and spent a month or a year. It was somebody who came up and spent a couple days and left. And left meaning back to another state, not just West Virginia, Pennsylvania, not some Michigan, not someone close, but left. And that's why a lot of our ideas came to that, meaning somebody came here with doing this horrible act and leaving. We felt that he was in town for 5 days. And why? Because of the same type of thing at the Akron Park that occurred. Now, if you remember, back then, there were 4 to 5 homicides of females in the Chapel Hill area. Lynn Slaby, our prosecutor at the time, one of them being a relative. So we're trying to put that with them, or saying no, that doesn't go with us. And we said right away, no, it doesn't go with us. It's not ours. This is ours. And a lot we didn't release to the media. I think in our report, everything that went through the news media, we put in our packet of information. Simply because, as you know, when you're interviewing someone, what do you know, what don't you know? And that's why we kept that together. But that was our person we were looking for, somebody that we probably knew wasn't ever coming back to our area. And that's why CODIS is outstanding now, because you get somebody who gets arrested on a F5 and they're in and they submit to their DNA. These are the kind of cases that get solved because of that.
I know you briefly touched on it, so I'm assuming because when on my research going through this file, I couldn't determine myself, but I'm assuming his timeline was never concrete. Is that correct? I mean, we don't know where he was or anything.
No. We had reason to believe. Now, there was a motel, the No-Tell Motel, up the street from the bike trail that had trucker parking behind, had big vehicle parking behind. And that's just what happened. People would come off the turnpike in Streetsboro, because the Route 8 exit wasn't there yet. They'd come off the turnpike and head up there for a delivery, not be able to make a delivery, and park there. We got a lot of information on trucks because that's where we were kind of heading. Who's going to be here, spend just a couple days, a week at most, and leave, and never be seen again. So a lot of documentations of trucks coming and going, and that's what we felt.
So, you already answered this pretty much. My question was, did you ever consider him or the perpetrator being a serial offender or not? And you guys did. So,
yeah, we looked at the one that occurred, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana. There were a couple other states that were involved with a truck driver, used a knife, rape, stab, that type of thing. They had DNA, didn't fit.
And just describing, because a lot of people, Commissioner, my audience is pretty wide around the United States. They may not be familiar with the Hudson area. So one of my questions was basically just, how did this murder affect Hudson Township in general? Because, Hudson Township is a pretty quiet place normally. Yeah.
Very quiet place, very influential. If you look at major corporations throughout the United States, if the CEO didn't live there, the owner lived there. So it was a very, very rural, however nice community. And it was a shock. However, it was to the outskirts. It was right on our line. And I think that not only, we got so much support from the community. We had companies call and say, hey, if you need to do a test and you can't afford it, let us know. We'll do it for you. We'll pay to have it done. So we had a lot of support, and I don't think there was much fear. Our police department was very well trained. We had a lot of very, very exceptional officers that worked there, and I think they felt comfortable. It was an impact. No question about that. But I think, as you know, you just have to explain to them, here's what's up. And we had for quite some time, we had a weekly news briefing with the media to tell them, okay, here's where we're at today. Obviously not to give away our information, but we did explain to them, we're on this.
And that's literally my next question is, was there any measure taken to keep the community informed and involved?
Yep. Yeah, we did that because we just, most of us that have been in the job for a while, we realized that, what if I lived right there? Or what if my family lived there? You have to act accordingly, how you would feel. And we did. We talked to probably a mile radius of there, not only as a canvas and interview, but to kind of set them at ease and say, hey, listen, this is a one-time shot of what occurred. We think it's somebody who has already left the area. And that was our knowledge to the case. Your expert opinion at the time.
And I'm going back to questions. I'm sort of going all over the place here at this point. But so with the trail, I was, trying to get modern footage. And I think we briefly talked. There's all sorts of condos and stuff. Those weren't there at that point, correct?
They were not. Very rural area. To the south of that, to the southeast, if you will, by about 200 yards was a street with about 5 homes on it, ranch-style homes. Other than that, all the other houses, all the way up to Terex Road, there was nothing there. That was all open field, farmland, actually.
Were there actually, because now, and I found this out the hard way, I went down the wrong path, literally, but...
I would have went with you.
There's 2 paths that actually run parallel. Were there always there, or was there just one path?
There was just one path.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. And that would be the one to the east.
Yeah, I found that out the hard way.
Hey, all you have to do is call out of them.
So when you're talking about the houses, were they along the way, or are you talking about the housing developments? It's like towards the end of the.
Yeah, none of that development was there. None of them.
All right. And because the husband at some point when he came back, that house is still there. I think it's 390.
Yes.
Well, I don't want to give the address.
Right.
Whatever it is, the address, it's still there.
Yeah.
It looks like it's different owner now.
It is. Yes. Yes.
But
He actually lives in my county now.
oh, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So when the case went cold, what steps were kept to basically keep it active and periodically reviewed?
Well, notifying at that time, into the 90s, there were a lot of investigative groups that had been started. Let's get together with Cuyahoga, Geauga, Summit, Portage, and let's get together and compare notes. And we did that a couple times a month, and it worked out pretty good because at one point we were like, oh, tell me more. And then it just panned out to not work. But keeping, J.D. Kalmar was very good of keeping contact with the investigators, not only the ones that worked it, but the newer ones coming on board. New investigators, hey, let me run something past you. And he would spend a day to 2 days running our case past them. So we kept it new and fresh out there. And I have to admit, the chief in Hudson, who is currently the chief now, kept tossing our case forward. Kept going to BCI, hey, can you continue to look at this? Can you keep reviewing this for us? A couple cold case investigators from BCI had taken our case. I received many calls asking questions. What about this or what about that? Or, I understand why you guys did this, but why didn't we do this? So, and I applauded that. I'm not the best. I was very knowledgeable at the time in the resources that we had, but things are changing daily. Investigative skills, technology, and once again, we would have loved to went anywhere in the United States and arrested this guy and brought him back. It would have made my day, but unfortunately we can't do that. But we really pushed this out, and the chief in Hudson currently really continued, and quite frankly, I think that's how we ended up finding who this person really was.
So when you finally learned that it was Thomas Collier Jordan, how to describe your feelings at that point?
Well, I got a call from one of the current detectives at Hudson, and he just said, hey, I got some news for you. And he said, you're the first one I called. I said, okay, what's up? And I had something in my mind that this was it. And he said, we found the murderer of Janice Christensen. And I said, you're kidding me. And he said, no. He said, he's since passed, but we found him. And then he explained it to me. And, I've thought of this case, and people say, no, you didn't. You can talk to my wife every day. And you had your traits of what you did when you were doing the job and things that made you feel comfortable and better. I'd been involved in some police shootings myself and been shot twice. And so every day before I left my home, from the very first day I wore a gun, I always said a prayer, I don't want to have to use this today. And the backside of that is this. I'm a God-fearing man. If I wasn't, I probably wouldn't be here today from what I've been through. But my time at church is always a prayer for the capture of Janice Christensen's murderer, because I got to know the family, some who have since passed. And as you know, as time goes by, years go by, people forget. I never forgot. I've got a couple other cases. I don't forget. And this case was one that made me feel, I felt good, but I still felt bad. This was something that was heartache for a family for years. And to sit back and not know, I think that's the part that bothers me the most. To not know. You know, you watch programs and people get fixated with forensic files and different things. You know, just the other day, I happened to catch the end of a show, and there's a guy, he's 65, 75 years old, living a life in Florida, from the Michigan area, went down there and lived and killed somebody up here when he was 22 years old. And through DNA and CODIS, they caught him. So, you just don't know who's who anymore. But my reaction was, oh my God. My wife wasn't home, and I hung up with the detective, and I called her right away, and I said, you're not going to believe this. Because it does. You have your blue days, you know that, where, oh man, I just wish. But it finally came to fruition, and that's what made me happy.
Yeah, it was even. I mean, I'm a total outsider to this situation, but I was super frustrated that unfortunately he didn't get the justice he deserved. And I mean, you could do a whole 3-hour segment on this guy. This guy, I have no idea how he was not still incarcerated for life on half of what he did. But I mean, it's not our decision to make. But
right.
So, I think you pretty much said it was the chief, but I'm going to ask you, in your opinion, what was the most crucial factor that finally led to solving this case after nearly 4 decades?
Yeah, CODIS, DNA, us being able to not only grab DNA at the scene, but to preserve enough to test and match. Not only just testing, but as you know, you have to have enough there to match. And the current chief, Chris at Hudson, I obviously can't thank them enough. You thank the detective that called me, hey, I appreciate you so much, but how do you thank them? That could have been on a file, on a shelf somewhere, and nobody even looked at it again. But I think deep down, the caring that comes from the officers and the knowledge that they knew we were still waiting, still wanting, and you know, I got to thank the chief. I can't thank him enough.
And that's one thing, Commissioner. I gotta say, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's one thing for you to want to carry on to that, but you have a detective that has really no emotional ties whatsoever to this case, and right. I mean, that's the way law. I want people to understand that's the way good law enforcement is. They're very conscientious about cases, and again, there were cases that this detective had nothing bearing on this case whatsoever, but still wanted to see it through, and so that's right. Awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
So, looking back, are there any aspects of the investigation you wish you would have handled differently?
You know, I was never a Monday night quarterback with anybody that did an investigation. I always reviewed all the cases that came through, and you know, pretty much felt that everybody did everything that they could possibly do. In this case, when we hit that juncture of where are we going, who are we looking for, we opened our case. We had several boxes, and J.D. Calmore and I hauled those boxes to many different departments, signed them out to them, photographed us giving them this case and saying, have at it and let us know what we didn't do. And like I said earlier, I'm proud of the investigation we did. I'm very happy with the conclusion, obviously, but I'm very sad that we just never got to that point of putting somebody in handcuffs. And that was my goal. But to open it up, I'm not that kind of guy. Come and look. If you have an idea, lay it on us. But we really didn't. I can think of 5 different departments that took our case, had it for a little over a month, and brought it back and said, I don't know what else we could do. So I get it, but then I don't, because I wanted the satisfaction of arresting him.
How has this case influenced your approach to other investigations? Well, I mean, I guess you were obviously the chief of Aurora, but I mean, did it affect any other investigations in your career?
Well, it obviously, now, if I was still on the job, now would be preserve evidence. Now, knowing what I know, I kind of did that from the training that we had. I mean, you as well, you've listened to these people that have actually investigated this type of thing, and why did you take that cigarette butt, and why did you take that pop can, and why are you sweeping that car? There are factors there that every case that I've handled bring you back to, don't forget this, and this. The ABCs of, the who, what, when, where, why, and how, as opposed to, that doesn't look good, have a nice day. And that isn't it anymore. Law enforcement is, as you know, it's all, it has to do with forensics. Testing this and testing that, and we found that little hair of yours, and it shouldn't have been there. So,
some of my questions are closely related, I guess, but you sort of answered. But I was asking if there was any advice that you would have to give current law enforcement when working in cold case.
No, it's just don't take any of it for granted. Ask questions. And don't feel bad either. Why didn't you do this? Tell them. And if you don't know, tell them that too. Why didn't you talk to this person? And it did happen to us. And I looked at the investigator and I said, I don't know. I really don't know. We were probably at that time, let me make an excuse. But I don't like to do that. We were tied up on this, or we were doing this, or we were waiting for this search warrant. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and ask someone else to take a look.
Just curiously, did you have any? I mean, as far as the husband, it's just my own curious question. Were you guys ever able to give any resolution with each other, or?
To this day, I want to contact him. I know how to contact him. I could drive to his house and be there in 20 minutes. I'm not ready yet. A lot of bad things. And I will tell you that he was the most gracious person to us. Obviously, he was upset the whole time, no matter what we had him do. Whether it was more DNA testing, more submission of hairs, another polygraph, on and on. But I'm going to tell you, he was gracious to us. And the way I looked at him and may have treated him, that's on me. And I will make it right, or I will attempt to make it right. But quite frankly, Chief, I'm not ready yet.
And Commissioner, like I said, I wouldn't beat yourself up. Homicide, sir. Like I said, you're going to look at the closest person to the victim. So I mean, I wouldn't beat myself up. But is there anything that I haven't asked that you want to bring in?
No, not anything that I'm aware of. Just as I indicated earlier, to don't take this on alone. To any investigator that's listening that wants to understand a little more, I'm always available. I'm around. If anybody wants to call and ask questions of why we did something or why we didn't, I'm more than happy to answer questions. This was a horrible case in my 33-year career that I obviously in my position now I don't have to do anymore.
All right. Well, hopefully, if I have any other questions as I'm trying to put this together, you mind?
I'm available.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm available to you 24/7. I gave you my personal cell. You utilize that however you wish. Don't be writing it on bathroom walls. But other than that, yeah, feel free to call me. The only reason I don't answer my phone is if I'm with someone. Other than that, I'll pick you up. So anything you need or something that looks really silly and you want to ask, call.
All right. I appreciate your time, Commissioner.
I appreciate you. Have a good day.
You too. As we wrap up this extended episode of the Tentacles of Cuyahoga County, I want to express my sincere gratitude to Mike Tinlin, the original investigator on the Janice Christensen case, for taking the time to speak with us. His insights have been invaluable in shedding light on this long unsolved mystery. I know we usually try to keep our episodes between 30 to 40 minutes, but the complexity and significance of this case demanded more time. I appreciate your patience as we went deeper into the details. I felt it was important not to split this story across multiple episodes. Looking ahead, our next episode will be a deep dive into the life and crimes of Thomas Collier Jordan, the man finally identified as Janice's killer. We'll be exploring the burning question on everybody's mind: how was this serial predator able to avoid long-term incarceration despite his extensive criminal history? Thank you for joining us for this important episode. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe, Tentacle Nation.